Hey guys, how are you? Today's book is about Ibn Sina, his remarks and admonitions, physics and metaphysics. So this is basically a translation of his works. So let me just tell you a little bit about Ibn Sina himself. That Ibn Sina was a man whose intellect illuminated the dark corridors of the medieval world, and where shadows of ignorance loomed really largely. And he was born in about 980 in the bustling town of Afshana, which is basically near Bukhara in Uzbekistan. It is said that he was just a child no older than 10 years old, and he already memorized the whole Quran. And his mind was basically a sponge of knowledge, and by the time he was 16 he was already practicing being a physician, and a young man barely out of his adolescence, um, curing illnesses that even the most experienced of the doctors would not be able to do it. So his fame spread sort of like wildfire, and but this wasn't enough for him, because if we look at history of Ibn Sina, uh, from a long shot, Ibn Sina had a thirst of knowledge, and he had a hunger for knowledge, not just for healing the body, but for unraveling the mysteries of the universe itself. As this book, it talks about physics and metaphysics and mathematics, and so he did pursue that, and he began to write, producing works of philosophy, theology, logic, arithmetic, and that would sort of echo throughout the coming centuries. One of his famous works is the Canon of Medicine, and which was an astounding compendium of knowledge which is used up till now in this time for medical knowledge and all of that. And it still is a beacon for the coming generations regarding the medicine and all. It shaped the practice of medicine across both the Islamic world and the Europe world. But beyond that, the Book of Healing, his philosophical concept and masterpieces, is one of also his books, uh, which was where he delved into metaphysics and physics itself by using philosophy, and what is basically nature and what is basically God and all of that. He talks about that. And the canon was an intellectual bridge from ancient Greeks to Renaissance thinkers. But if you look at the life of Ibn Sina, his life wasn't just all about books and scrolls and knowledge. He was basically, his life was one of the constant movement. He literally believed that, just as Rumi says, that change is the only constant. So he kept on changing, adapting to his philosophies and all of that, traveling from court to court, finding favor with kings, but also facing exile and political intrigue and betrayal during his life on this world. In this world, there was conflict, there was hardship in his life also, but yet, though it all, he managed to maintain and he managed to be steadfast in gaining the knowledge and writing books and all of that, like leaving books for the coming generations. As we look at Ibn Sina, when we think about Ibn Sina, his Latin name is Avicenna. So as we look to the life of Ibn Sina, we're not merely looking at a name etched in the record of history. We're looking at a mind, one that illuminated the darkness of his time, and one that continues to shine through the ages up till now and in the future also, reminding us of the power of human inquiry and relentless pursuit of knowledge. So in this book, in the very first chapters, he talks about on the substance of bodies. So he continues this book by defining what a body is. And Ibn Sina begins by defining a body as a substance that occupies space, possesses dimensions like length, breadth, and depth, and exists in a state of extension. And he distinguishes corporal substances from incorporeal ones, such as souls or intellects, by emphasizing their spatial characteristics. Then he talks about bodies, matter, and form. So what he says that bodies are understood as a composite of matter and form. Matter provides substrate, while form gives structure and essence. And what he says that this duality aligns with the Aristotelian concepts, Aristotle's metaphysics concepts, but is expanded with Ibn Sina's unique insights, how he basically defines the Aristotle's concepts and how he basically puts his own philosophy in it. He talks about in this chapter unity and multiplicity. What he says is that the unity of a body lies in its cohesive substance, while its multiplicity arises from its capacity to be divided into parts. By addressing the substance of bodies, Ibn Sina, what he does is he establishes a framework to bridge physical and metaphysical inquiry, highlighting the intricate interplay between material existence and philosophical abstraction. This class is pivotal for understanding the subsequent discussions on direction, soul, and existence, and as it provides the elemental foundation of what it means to be in the corporal sense. So in this book, the chapters are named as classes. So that was the first class, and now in the second class, in the second chapter, he talks about on the directions and their primary and secondary bodies. So what he means that he sort of explores the spatial orientation and structure of the physical universe, and Ibn Sina examines how physical bodies relate to space, directions, and the hierarchy ordering of material and celestial entities. By the nature of direction, he means that directions such as up, down, left, right, front, and back are discussed as fundamental orientations that emerge from the spatial properties of bodies. And he emphasizes that the directions are not inherent to bodies, but arise from their placement within a spatial context. Then he talks about primary versus secondary bodies in this chapters. What he means is that primary bodies are those that serve as foundational elements of the physical world. These include celestial spheres and elements like earth, water, air, and fire, which are considered essential building blocks of existence itself. And as the secondary bodies, he means that are composed of combinations of derivatives of the primary bodies, forming the variety of substances and entities observed in the terrestrial realm. Then he talks about the cosmic hierarchy in the universe. What he means is that he elaborates on the hierarchy organization of the universe itself, meaning with celestial bodies such as stars and planets occupying the highest levels due to their perceived perfection, uniform motion, and incorruptibility. But on the other hand, terrestrial bodies, in contrast, are subject to corruption and subject to generation and corruption and change, reflecting their position in the lower tiers of existence of the universe. In this chapter, in this class, the chapter, which he says it's a class, in the class, he sort of bridges physics and metaphysics by linking the physical properties of bodies to their spatial and directional relationships. It also prepares the reader for the coming discussions on the celestial and terrestrial spheres, which will come in the third chapter. in the third class, highlighting the interconnectedness of physical structures of the universe and metaphysical principles in Ibn Sina's own philosophical terms, in his own philosophy, so that you would be able to easily understand what he is trying to make you understand. Then in the third class, in the third chapter, is about terrestrial and celestial souls, objects, which explores the nature and distinction between the souls of earthly beings and celestial entities. Ibn Sina sort of delves into the metaphysical concept of the soul, emphasizing its role as the principle of life and movement itself. The subsequent supplement to the third class, which is basically an extended version in the book, which he talks in detail about the third class, about the terrestrial and celestial bodies, is that on expositing the movements produced by the soul. So he claimed that souls move, and the vibrations and whatever they basically the movement they make, he also talks about them, and which is basically connected to the universe and all that. He sort of elaborates on how the soul governs and directs physical motion in both terrestrial and celestial realms. He talks about the nature of the soul itself. Ibn Sina emphasizes the soul's role as an essential principle of life and motion and organization within both terrestrial and celestial beings. He draws a distinction between terrestrial soul, the soul of humans and animals, and the celestial soul, the soul of heavens, influencing celestial bodies like stars and planets. For the terrestrial souls, he talks that these beings, these souls, are basically the souls. These souls need basically nutrition and vegetation, which our bodies need as a human being, like human beings, animals, and all of these, basically the world we perceive right now, Earth basically. These faculties are tied to the physical body of the terrestrial bodies. What he mentioned is that is tied to the physical body, and the soul's interaction with the body determines the life processes and behaviors of earthly beings. And on the other hand, celestial souls, which he means by the celestial bodies, planets, stars, and whatsoever, he talks about celestial bodies, according to Ibn Sina, possesses a spiritual and immortal soul that is not tied to a physical body like the terrestrial souls. And these souls are often considered pure intellects, and their movements reflect a perfect divine order. The significance of this chapter is that in the third chapter and its supplement are critical to understanding the Ibn Sina's metaphysical and cosmological framework, how he basically understood all of these things. By integrating the soul with both terrestrial and celestial movements, Ibn Sina presents a unified system in which the soul is central to both life on Earth and the working of the universe. Everything is connected, like the butterfly effect and all of these things. No movement that is done in the universe doesn't have a meaning. What he believes, it has a meaning, and it is all connected like a dominoes effect. The terrestrial and celestial souls serve as mediators between the physical and the metaphysical, establishing a link between human beings' nature and divine order. And this exploration of the soul's faculties and its impact on movement paves the way for understanding the connection between intellect and the cosmos, matter, and all of these things. It's sort of like a showcasing Ibn Sina's profound impact on both philosophy and science. So then he talks about the creation itself. What he means is that he sort of delves into two critical metaphysical concepts that examine the origin of existence and the process by which things come into being. Ibn Sina sort of investigates whether creation can arise from nothing, and the nature of immediate creation, where something comes into being without intermediary causes or external influence. So in this chapter, he sort of like examines critically the concept of creation from nothing, and which is traditionally associated with divine power in various theological systems and religions, particularly in Islamic and Christian thought. And creation ex nihilo, which is creation from nothing, he sort of like implies that something is brought into existence without any pre-existing material cause. And when he talks about immediate creation refers to the direct and ongoing act of creation when God continually sustains the universe through his will. And this act of creation is not simply a one-time event, but is immediate, and meaning that every moment the universe exists is directly sustained and created by God. Like every second is created by him, even when I'm talking. The video that you're seeing, the blinks of your eyes, it's being created. In this chapter, what he says is that in the fifth chapter, which he basically addresses profound questions about the origin of the universe and existence itself, and pushing the boundaries of traditional theological debates about creation. And he provides a more nuanced understanding of creation itself, suggesting that while the universe is contingent and constantly sustained by divine power, creation is not singular event, but an ongoing process of emanation of the divine will. And his view challenges the idea of creation itself as an isolated event, and instead he sort of emphasizes the continuous and immediate creation that sustains the cosmos. This perspective comes to the later philosophical discussions on causality, existence, and the nature of divine action. Then, in the last chapters, he sort of talks about on abstraction, which sort of explores the process by which the mind extracts universal concept or essences from particular concrete instances. Ibn Sina delves into how abstraction plays a fundamental role in the intellectual process, and how it enables humans to understand the universal truths that govern reality. And in abstraction, according to Ibn Sina's view, is the mental process by which specific sensory information is stripped of its material particularities, and allowing the mind to grasp the essential, universal qualities of an object or a concept. He argues that humans are capable of abstracting from the physical world in order to form general concepts, such as the notion of man, triangle, and or goodness, which do not exist in a concrete concept, sensory form, but rather as universal ideas. In this process, the mind removes the individual characteristics of particular instances, for example, specific colors, sizes, and shapes, and sort of isolates the common attributes that define a category of things. So it's sort of like the abstraction. He talks about abstraction and the role of the intellect in the cosmology, you know. So it's sort of like, according to this guy, according to Ibn Sina, the human intellect performs abstraction through its active and passive aspects. The passive intellect receives sensory data from the world, while the active intellect processes this data and abstracts universal concepts from a particular experiences. The active intellect is essential in the process of abstraction, transforming the data from the senses into abstract concepts that exist independently of the material world. And for Ibn Sina, what I've observed, the ability to abstract is a key function of the rational soul, and is what allows humans to engage with higher level of knowledge and wisdom, such as philosophy and mathematics, which are not tied to specific sensory data. And he talks about the hierarchy of abstraction. So he outlines a hierarchy of abstraction that ranges from basic sensory perception to more advanced intellectual understanding of the concepts. At the lowest level, the mind abstracts simple concepts like shapes and colors from sensory experiences. At higher levels, the mind abstracts more complex universal concepts like the principle of logic or metaphysics itself. The highest level of abstraction involves grasping the necessary truths that pertain to existence, the divine, and the fundamental principles of the universe. These truths are These truths are eternal, in a sense, and unchanging, and can only be apprehended through a purified intellect, and which is capable of abstract understanding, reasoning, you know. And the role of he also talks about the role of abstraction in sciences. Ibn Sina's approach to the role of abstraction in sciences is crucial in his philosophy of science and his understanding of natural laws. Through abstraction, what he says is that the mind can identify the essential qualities of physical objects and natural phenomena, leading to the formulation of scientific principles. His method of abstraction laid the groundwork, groundwork for the development of scientific processes, theories that sought to explain the underlying causes and principles of the natural world. Basically, this book has the significance of that the concept of abstraction is central to Ibn Sina's philosophy, his philosophy of metaphysics and all of that, by showing how the human mind processes the sensory world and extracts the universal concepts through his mind, through his senses. He highlights the importance of reason in grasping both empirical and metaphysical truths. And abstraction is the intellectual bridge between the concrete world of the sensory experience and the abstract realm of the universal truths, making it a cornerstone of the philosophical and scientific inquiries. And his treatment of abstraction was groundbreaking, if you read the book, influencing later thinkers in both the Islamic world and in the West, particularly in the field of epistemology and metaphysics and philosophy of science and medicine, which are read up till now. And yeah, I guess that is pretty much it about Ibn Sina. So if you're really into metaphysics and all of this philosophy, all of that, and you're really into the Islamic perspective of philosophy and metaphysics, so you should get this book. I will also post the link in the description below. But yeah, this is a good read, and this is one of those reads that you need a quiet place to make notes and all of that. So it's a really thin book, but the words, the way it is detailed, the way it is explained, you would need a lot of time to understand and comprehend it. But yeah, it is a good read, and I will be doing more books about Ibn Sina and other scholars from the Islamic world and also from the Western world. So if you have any questions regarding this book or any of the books, and if you want me to talk about the books you like, please leave in the comments below. And I guess this is it. See you next time.